Hello, hello. This is Charlie from Under the Radar, and I'm going to provide a update or information about what you're going to see in the stars tonight or any night in October or different nights in October in 2024. This episode I'm calling The Poetry of the Stars, and the reason I'm doing that, there's a very appropriate short poem that end of the at the end of the podcast here, I guess I'd call it, that'll give you a link to a really short poem that's really powerful. So when you look, if you're like me, when you look up at the stars at night, you you're just amazed, and there's a poetry about that. I want to share that with you. So when I talk about that, hello, how are you? When I talk about that, it's really a great thing. It's a great poem to recite. My dad taught it to me when I was really young. My dad fought in the Korean War, and he learned this poem. It's a really an ancient Chinese poem about the Milky Way, and it talks about, if you're like me, when you look up in the sky, you have pretty deep thoughts sometimes, right? Let me get my camera going here correctly. And you have really deep thoughts sometimes when you're looking up at the sky at night, and it makes you think about, your mortality, frankly, right, and just your destiny. And that's what that poem's all about. It's really powerful. I think about it every time I get a telescope out and I point it to the heavens, especially when we get into the fall and some of those winter constellations start to come in. I just want to share that with you. So at the very end, I'll give a link to that. I did a video on it, and it's really cool. I think it's cool anyway. It's kind of tells it in an more interesting voice than mine, kind of how I came to love that poem. It's only about a 2-minute video. Go watch it, and I think you'll get something out of it. If you appreciate the sky, like I think most people that love astronomy do, there's a poetry about the stars, and that's what that thing talks about. Anyway, that's enough of that sentimental stuff. Let me get into I'm going to go through what the October sky is going to look like for us and what you're going to see. It's already a fantastic time of the year, or we happen to have a great month because we do not have a moon at the beginning of the month here, which is fantastic. So I'm borrowing this from Sky and Telescope's podcast that they do, and I'm going to walk through it quickly, so you don't have to go through their whole 15 minutes. Mine may go that long, I don't know, but anyway, if you look to phases, so we're right here. It's the second. We're not going to have any moon issues here. It's going to be a new moon, and slowly the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. So we're going to have some great stargazing if the weather is great, all the way up into next week about now. Then, if you know anything about, if you're really interested in astronomy and astrophotography, you're going to start to get into where the moon's just going to take over, unless you want to be up all night. It's going to take over and dominate the evening sky, and great time for pictures of that, to get out and to look at the moon and dive into the names of the craters and all the different features there. You can always do, of course. We'll have a full moon 16th, 17th, and then we'll move into the waning moon to the end of the month. And once again, at the end of the month, as we get farther and farther, we'll have a great stargazing at the end of the month. So that's fantastic. It's gonna be a great month, I think, for stargazing for us. So that talks about the moon a little bit and how it's going to move through the month. And they have really great Science Telescope does really great stuff here, but it's showing how the moon, how it looks for a new moon, how the sun's coming and hitting the Earth. Uh, Great podcast to look at. I'll give a link to it here. And there are some great comets out right now, and there's one in particular that they'll talk about here in just a second if I can get to it. If we get past their silly ad, is there's comets in the evening sky. Here we go. Let's stop there. So you've got, I can't pronounce it, but there's some great pictures of this right now out on different websites right now, in different smart telescope sites, of people taking fantastic pictures of this Atlas C 2023A3. And as we get into the month, it's telling us from the 11th to the 18th. So right now, I think it's just in the morning sky. You got to get it. So comets getting it brighter and brighter the closer it gets to the sun, right? And that's when you're going to start to see it, because that's going to reflect what's coming from the sun. So right now, it's barely visible in the morning sky, and it's going to flip, I think, is what they're saying here, where on the 11th, it's going to start to be in the evening sky in the west after the sun sets. Venus is really prominent right now in the southwest with the sun setting over here. and the comet's getting closer and closer to the sun, so it's going to be a better and better target. And then as the month goes along, it's getting farther and farther away from the sun. So it's going to between, if you look in the evening sky right now, you'll see Venus in the southwest, and then a little past due west, just maybe northwest, northwest, you've got Arcturus right now. So that's what you're going to see. It's something to really keep your eye out for. I think everybody's hopeful you'll be able to see it naked eye. You'll definitely see it through a telescope or through binoculars. I think you won't have any problem seeing that. And there's, I think, some actual pictures of people that have taken it and have shared it in the morning sky right now. What else we got? Looking on the 13th to the 15th, just after sunset, you'll have the moon as it gets closer and closer to full. It's going to get really close to Saturn. Last month it was fantastic, where you could actually got a picture of Saturn setting on the horizon of the moon, which is a fantastic picture. But it's going to be close. You'll be able to see that 13th to the 15th when the moon's getting close to full, and Fomalhaut, excuse me, it'll be southeast. And then other things to think about through the year. This is really the time of year when Orion would just, it's the classic winter constellation, right? It's going to start to take center stage here as we move farther and farther into the night. Around midnight, you're going to see, looking east, it's rising up. And there, I'm a poet too. I love poetry, and Robert Frost has a great a poem about this time of year where Orion's coming up over. Well, and he jokes that it's catching him doing things he should have done by the daytime that he's having to do at night. It's this time of year that poem is talking about. Maybe I'll do a quick video on that. It's a fantastic poem for astronomers as well. Anyway, point of this is Jupiter is in the area of Orion right now, so something you can see throughout the month is fantastic to get pictures of as well. What else we have? Talking about Pegasus a little bit in the Great Square. Pegasus will be in the east coming up. And what else do we have? Talking about the rotation of the stars there, Cassiopeia and Polaris, and then it's showing, okay, what they're showing here, this is really cool. And if you're not familiar with this, and I'm assuming a lot of people watching this are familiar with this, but just in case you're not, there's a number of ways to find north. So if you don't know how to find Polaris or true north, which is that's the top star and the handle of the Little Dipper, there's a couple different ways to do it. The most common way people do is if you look at the two end stars of the Big Dipper, right there and there, alpha and beta, and the width between those, if you take it and extend it 5 times out, straight line, to carry a straight line out there, you'll end up at Polaris. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you'll get at Polaris. Well, you do the same thing with Cassiopeia. It's on the other side, and it helps you focus in the same way. Where if you look at it's a W, right? It's the Queen's chair, or they call it as well. But you can look at the way it aims towards Polaris and just generally go that direction, and you'll find Polaris too, which is kind of cool. Big Dipper, the easiest way is with or the Little Dipper is the easiest to find. Polaris with the Big Dipper in my experience, in my life experience. But with smart telescopes, it's all kind of irrelevant in a lot of ways, which is interesting. What else we got? More on comets, and it looks like you've got, oh, that's the end of the month. They're reviewing the moon on the 28th, 29th that we already went through. And that's really it. And they, of course, they're sponsored by Celestron, who I'm looking at one of their scopes right now and trying to consider. Anyway, there's some really cool stuff. It's really a great month when you think about the moon phases here and how it's going to be. Won't be any full moon on Halloween this year. It's going to be a new moon. You're not going to really see anything at all. But for the next week, should be great. And then Saturn very close to the moon in the middle of the month, 16th to the 18th, and then you get that new moon later in the month. So great stargazing beginning end of the month, in the middle of the month. Think about the moon and Saturn, and you'll see Venus and Arcturus over there in the west. So it's going to be a great month. It's one of my favorite months to stargaze, as Orion again is starting to take center stage and start to come up earlier and earlier in the evening. And at the end of this thing, I'm going to try to, if I can figure out how to provide a link to that poem I talked about. It's called The River of Stars. Seriously, take it, listen to it. It's fantastic. If you're a deep thinker and you see the poetry in the stars, you want to listen to that poem. I guarantee you've never heard of it. It's a rare poem. My dad taught it to me, and I love it. And then maybe I'll do one on the Robert Frost poem about Orion too. Maybe I'll save that for next month. But fantastic poems. Again, I'm a scientist. I think like a scientist empirically, but I love it's the it's the art and the beauty of the stars as well that attracts me. So thanks so much for listening. If you did listen in all the way here, and I hope that you have a. Let me go back to here. Oh, no, still mastering the software. Um, I hope you have a great month. Enjoy what the sky has to offer, and take kids out, take grandkids out, point out stars to them. Point out, it's. I'll wrap this up with this. Right now, still right overhead, you can see the Great Triangle that's in the Milky Way of some of the brightest stars in the summer sky, and it's really cool to point those out. These are things that your kids or your grandkids will never forget after you're long gone from this earth. They go out, they'll see a star, and they'll think of you. You don't have to go to that stupid name a star thing, which is a joke, right? Go out there and make them your own. They belong to all of us, right? And you can go out and do that. And I think of different people. What I do, get sentimental here. What I do is when someone important to me in my life passes away, there's a star. I go out, sometime around when they passed, and I'll look at a star and I'll think of them. And there's several out there I have like that with my parents and some friends and my brother who passed away several years ago. So I encourage you to do the same. It's not just science, it's not just getting pictures and getting great pictures. It's the poetry and the meaning of it and the deep thinking that you do, or that I think a lot of people do. Anyway, thank you very much. Take a look at the videos, the cards that should appear somewhere on the screen here. If I can figure out how to do it, I'm new to all this. Like over here and over here, you'll be able to see some of the video links right to those poems, especially that one, "The River of Stars." Let me know what you think of it in the chat. See if it's meaningful to you as it is to me. See if it's as meaningful to you as it is to me. Thank you very much, and look up at. I'm not Jack Horkheimer, but keep looking up. It's going to be a great month in the October skies. Thank you so much, and have a fantastic day.